Now, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Glenn Stewart. Glenn's bio lists 9 very different activities and occupations over and above his avocation as educator and horseman. Now, in my line of work, when I see someone like this, I'm concerned about stability and the ability to hold down a job. But I'm glad you laughed. My wife said, "Don't say that, Brian. It sounds so mean." And I said, "Barbara, these people are intelligent. They would laugh." Thank you for affirming my insight. Anyhow, back to Glenn. Glenn has done so many different things because he is possessed of a deeply curious spirit that both seeks and finds meaning in a myriad of fields and endeavors. Ladies and gentlemen, first speaker, second segment, Glenn Stewart.
Well, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you, Bob Dylan, for that introduction. That's right, wasn't it? It's a real honor to be asked to speak here tonight. I think if anybody that knows me, if you were to ask them what does Glenn do, they would not say he's a public speaker, and I would have to agree with them. They would probably say I'm a horse trainer, and that's pretty true. I probably do more people training than I do horse training. What I wanted to do was do something outdoors and do something with horses. That was my grandiose plan back in grade 12 when they said, "What are you going to do at college and university?" And I didn't tell anybody that because I thought, I don't know anybody that's making a living something outdoors and something with horses. I knew guys that were dabbling with it on the weekends. I knew people that had other jobs, and that was paying the bills, and they fiddled with horses. So I thought, yeah, that'll be my story too. So I just went to work in the oil patch. I never really loved it much, but I did stay there a long time. While I was in the oil patch, and the year I graduated, my dad got me a job working for my great uncle, Gary Powell. And Gary Powell's not with us anymore. I worked with him for probably 3 to 4 years when he crashed his plane. But he had a huge effect on me in that first 3 months that I was there and forevermore. And he doesn't realize, but he's had a huge effect on the people that I deal with still to this day. And I wasn't sure what to talk about when I got out here, when they asked me to come out and, if I would be willing to speak here. The first thing I thought was, well, I don't know why you'd want me to speak. And secondly, I started feeling uncomfortable right away. And as soon as I started feeling uncomfortable, then I thought about it and asked the questions for about a minute. And I thought, if you're uncomfortable, you better do it. And that's kind of what my talk's about, is that we've gotten real used to being comfortable, and the whole world and whole society is kind of bent around being comfortable. Everything we do is comfortable. My truck, I don't know if you can buy a truck anymore without air-conditioned seats, 3 different settings and 3 different heat settings, and a television for everybody in the vehicle, and on and on. Everybody's got to be comfortable. And when I worked for Gary, I went up there at 17 years old, and flew into the mountains, never been into the mountains before, and he gave me job after job after job that I had no idea how to do. I didn't know, I'd never seen anybody do it. I didn't know how I was going to survive these jobs that he'd give me. But somehow we did survive, and I don't think he didn't have any grandiose plans. I think all he wanted to do is get some work done. He probably said, maybe I can make a man out of this kid. I don't know if he even thought that far into it. But he would give us, for example, we might have 30 head of horses that never been touched. They're 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and they'd get run into a corral. And he'd say, okay, I want you guys to get them all haltered up and saddled and get them horses rode. Let's go. And he'd fly out and go off to some other camp and come flying back and land and I remember specifically this one day, he landed his plane, jumped out of the plane, and this was actually the second year I was there, so I kind of knew it when I seen it. And he come out of that plane, stomping down the thing, and smoke coming out his ears, and we'd only had 1 horse, and I wasn't actually there. I was up delivering salt to a fly shed for the horses up on the hill, and the older crew, the more experienced guys, were the ones who were supposed to be getting the horses ready. He comes stomping out of the plane because there's only one horse that had been saddled while he flew off and come back. And I could tell he was mad, and people started scattering like flies hiding, trying to pretend they were busy, and I would just come riding back in, and Omer was 70-some years old, and he was the only one in the corral, and Gary went down to the corral and decided he would show us how we're going to saddle horses and how we're going to get them ready and get these horses going. So Omer was helping him, and I thought, well, I can't leave Omer in there. He's 70-some years old, and these horses are rearing and jumping and pulling back, and Gary's still saddling and packing, and Omer. So I jumped in and helped Gary. And that was only one of many stories that things that went on in there that made me very uncomfortable. I thought I could die. I've got pictures of these horses pulling back and jumping, and you're supposed to stay right there and get these saddles on. He sent me and a 13-year-old one time to the highway with 13 head of horses. The 13-year-old had the most experience, so he was out front. It's a true story. He'd been there since he was 10 in the summer times. So you think of some 13-year-olds that you know, and you're going to give them 13 head of horses, 2 big draft downs that paid attention to nobody, and then put a 17-year-old behind them that knew nothing, and draw a map on a piece of paper, a napkin that you pull out of those little silver napkin things off the table. He scratched it. There's a 3-day trail ride right there. And get going. So we left. We're not allowed to take tents, bedrolls. Only food we could have is what we could stick in our saddlebags. So I picked fruit cocktail. I thought that would be good. And so when I was 17, all that sugar was good. So we slept under our saddle blankets, and if anybody's ever slept in the saddle blanket, maybe Wayne knows what I'm talking about. It's not near as romantic as what it makes out to be on TV. They're stinky, they're wet, they're cold, and you're laying under a tree there shivering and shaking for a few hours, and oh, to hell with it, you just get up, saddle your horses, and get going. We didn't know where we were going. We were lost half the time. We got the draft horses stuck in the muskeg all the time. We got to the Muskwa River, and so naive that I was, I thought that the Muskwa, when we hit the Muskwa River, we hit the crossing, you know. And if you know about the Muskwa River, it's pretty long. You could hit the Muskwa River anywhere. We hit it in the dark at the end of October. It's about October 30th, I think, so it's freezing outside. We bailed off the banks into swimming water, swam the Muskwa in the dark, come out the other side. Gary said there'd be a camp right there on the other side of the river. Well, of course, we weren't on the crossing, so I don't know where camp was, but he did say turn right, and it'll be right there on your left. So we turned right, rode for about an hour. Our pants are frozen, coats are frozen, shirts are frozen. I happened to see the coal oil lantern flickering in the cabin about a quarter mile off. So we got to camp, got all dried out, put the horses away. But there's just one thing after another like that. I was uncomfortable all the time, mentally, emotionally, and physically uncomfortable. When I look back over life, the things I remember the most are the times that I was uncomfortable. When I'm comfortable, I don't remember that. I don't remember those times. I know the most growth, the most experience, and the best adventures I've ever had in my life is when I've been very uncomfortable. And so with this horse training business that I've got into, I just want to train horses. I do not want to speak in front of a group of people. I got counting last night. Instead of sleeping, I thought I'll stay up and be nervous all night. And so I got thinking about this, and I started counting, I go, you know what, it's been over 20,000 people that I've talked in front of. And I'm not a public speaker. I don't claim to be. I never said I was, don't want to be. The biggest crowd I've talked in front of was 8,000 people. And kind of the moral of the story is that it started with him getting me uncomfortable. I started looking back on all those things. So you know what the most fun, the most vivid memories I have was all those things that I did that I was very uncomfortable doing. And so I started to change my thinking and said, you know what, I got to say yes to some of these things instead of watching everybody else live. I'm going to have to say yes to some of these things that are happening, you know, that are going on, that are passing me by, that look like a lot of fun. And so people come up and ask me to do things, and I'd go, oh man, that makes me uncomfortable. Okay, I'll do it. Because no matter what happens, I'm going to be benefited the most out of anybody there. So with having that kind of a train of thought, I've been flown to Brazil numerous times to do presentations for Lusitano Society of Breeders of Brazil. Been to some of the fanciest ranches I've ever seen in my life. Oh, sorry, hit the video, Russ. You'll be able to see some of this behind us. I was just going to run some of this video so you could see. I've represented Canada in a World Colt Starting competition where there's cameras all around. There's people asking you questions. You've got like 3 hours to get a horse that you can't even catch. They'll run them in a pen for you. You got to get them caught, saddled, rode, and after the 3 hours, 2 sessions, you have to ride a course on this horse in front of these 8,000 people that you're seeing on the screen. That's one of the competition that I was at. So it was against Australia and the United States. And a good 50% of the reason I took that, I said yes to that, to go in there, is because I thought if I don't, I'm going to miss out on when will you ever experience that? When would it ever, how could you ever duplicate that, to have that kind of pressure put on you where there's a camera right there and there's a camera right there. You're trying to get a saddle on a colt for the very first time. It could buck you off when you crawl on it. You got 18,000 people and some want you to get bucked off. Some are cheering for you. Everybody wants to see a little, dust and some kind of a medley. You end up having to write articles for magazines, the newspapers there, the televisions are there, all things that I am not comfortable with was not my plan. But by just saying, you know what, I'm going to suck it up and go do this uncomfortable thing, I have experienced more stuff and been more blessed. You see the pictures there in the mountains. In 1 year, I'll go to the mountains, go to Brazil, go to the Calgary Stampede, and maybe compete in world competition. That's in Brazil there, riding the top reining horse of all of Brazil. That's me saying yes to some people that said, would you like to learn how to roam and ride? Oh God, yes, would I ever. I was sore from here to here for a week, trying to brace up and hold on to that horse. So the next time you have an opportunity arises and you think, geez, that makes me uncomfortable, before you say no or avoid the situation, maybe say yes. It might be the best thing you ever did. Thank you.